completely different bacteriology, because it is based on a different genetics. Not on the old genetics, which, so to speak, served its purpose, and now it's already like a step, right? We need to go to the next step. They say, no, oh, there are no steps, only here, everything is here, on this step. Because here is our salary, here are our posts, our chairs. Naturally, right. And here, it is necessary to retrain. Oh, and why would they do that? Naturally, it's better to ruin this direction, and that's it. The easiest thing to do, that's what they do. So I was invited to Bonn University. Well, there is no higher, the highest level. They gave me a group there, so I'm the chief researcher. I'm a graduate student, so I have money for equipment, everything is there. Started working. We worked for 6 months, managed, thank God, to publish a key work that caused a scandal. A call from Fortev, and then he wasn't even president yet, he was vice president. He calls the rector almost in the middle of the night. You have to disperse Garyaev from the group itself there. That's it. He calls me, says, well, what can we do? The one who invited me there, Matveev, is such an honored worker there, a major scientist and all that sort of thing. Department of Control System Informatics. And so well, what can I do? So well, this very Fortev called me. Not to me, but to the rector. And the rector called me, he says, in the middle of the night. That's the extent to which it drove them. And that's it, I had to leave there. So, one group, and there were 2 more groups dispersed before that, I don't even want to remember. Sometimes the 4th group was created in Nizhny Novgorod. The guys are doctors, very intelligent. I performed there in Nizhny Novgorod. They say let's repeat your Canadian experiments, because no one seems to believe them. And we proved there that it is possible to regenerate the pancreas if it is killed, and there are poisons that kill the pancreas. And rats die from type 1 diabetes?
Yeah.
Here. And that means what? Come on guys, just for this you need to buy a laser. Well, then thank God, it was not so expensive. Because thanks to my advertising, it cost $200 before, yes, only, but here it's $4,000. You will find it please. They found this money, bought a laser. I came, taught everything how to work, and then, they did well themselves. They are still such swearing, good guys. Anya was there, she was a candidate of medical sciences. Very good hands, a good head. And they simply repeated our Terran ones, what we did once, only they repeated it here in Nizhny Novgorod and even went further. They have shown that it is possible to create wave immunity. In general, this is a new concept, because we all have the same genes, at least protein ones. We have the same DNA, but only different programs are written on them. And these programs can be changed at their own discretion, so to speak. At least we are on this path right now, because we know how to change these programs. For example, human stem cells are programmed. This is working with stem cells. Here we all have. Each organ, each tissue has its own stem cells. These are cells that are immortal first of all, yes, and they live in the mode of receiving information. That's how the body commands them, that's what they do. And they replace old cells with young ones, that is, regeneration is taking place at the cellular level. But at the organ level, it only goes with us. Here, we have regenerated only 3 things: nails, hair, and liver. And if you have lost a finger, or an arm, or a leg, there will be no regeneration. And in the lower biocyst systems, for example, salamanders, octopuses, coleonterates, hydra, jellyfish, and so on. And they regenerate them very well. There is even a worm that, if it is simply cut into many parts, then a new worm grows out of each part. In other words, simple organisms have this regeneration system, because they are simple. And for a person, he has a very complex system, much more complicated than a worm, let's say, right? It's not. Only here on the hair, nails and liver, and that's it. Have you been successful? The heart cannot be regenerated, and we bypassed this case. And that's when we entered the field of regenerative stem cell medicine with the help of our laser, so to speak, our laser. But it has become obsolete, and it has ceased to be produced. And I took it. I have a hint here. I do not know where I came from. Try it, because this laser uses the spin state of photons. It operates on the photon polarization state. That's the smartest word, even I'll just say it. And these states of photons are able to record genetic information. I skip over a lot of, so to speak, incomprehensible things that we are still studying. Yes, there are a lot of things that are not clear to us, although I have been working with physicists for many years, and now I am working with Gennady Ivanovich Ship, who is the world's largest specialist in torsion fields. That's how we got torsion effects on this very laser of ours. And it is these photons that we use as a way to record genetic information. Simply put, how? A laser is taken, a beam, and it scans, for example, a cell. Here he is standing online. See, it is very simple in appearance, but there is a precious property. There are two polarizations. And so they just provide this ability to read genetic, and even more broadly genetic metabolic information. Because all of our molecules of which we stand, they are all optically active, that is, they rotate the plane of polarization of light. This means that the laser senses this and records information about all molecules, including DNA, as the main information structure of our body. Here, he recorded in the form of a photon field, which is modulated by polarization, right? That is, according to the spin states. And then, we do it very simply. We translate this radiation that we get from photons, and there is still some kind of subtlety there, yes, but it is fundamental. These photons turn into a broadband electromagnetic field, including radio waves. That is, we have photons at the input, and at the output, we have radio waves that are modulated, for example, by DNA molecules, or all cellular information, or tissue information. And these radio waves contain a torsion component, a spin component, it is the main one. And the radio wave as a carrier. Here, and that means we're just this one. As a radio receiver, we record this information at a certain wavelength. That's how the radio station is. A radio receiver is being received. In this case, here are our cells that we read. Yes, they are, as it were, radiators of this information. We read it with a laser beam. Here, as a result, we get a recording at a certain wavelength in the form of sound. Just like on a radio receiver sound. We simply transfer this sound to flash drives, to carriers, and give it to patients. I write about this and say that if you want to be cured, then of course, it is best to take your own umbilical cord blood and your placenta at birth. But, since no one is doing this yet, they are just starting to do it now, so this umbilical cord blood is the placenta. It will be a source of information for your recovery, rejuvenation, and so on. So, but since yours doesn't, you take your own children or grandchildren and take their umbilical cord, blood at birth, and placenta. A piece of placenta from anywhere, there is a centimeter by centimeter small, maybe even less, and there are 1.5 to 2 milliliters of umbilical cord blood. That's it. This is a source of precious information that we will use for your treatment. They bring it to me and you are in the cold, and for 3 days it's all stored well at the usual temperature of melting ice 0 degrees. Here, and we record information with this laser. All the information that is contained, we read it and then transfer it to a flash drive, give it to the patient, or just send it by email, and that's it. And the person listens. That's it. See which one. Any good thing, it should be basically simple. Here is our ideology. It is very simple. We say and repeat after Garyaev, who was the first to say that in 1924, that the chromosome, including our chromosome, has a wave or field equivalent. Then, of course, he did not explain, he was just a pure hypothesis, but there was a brilliant hypothesis. And nobody knows what the wave equivalent is. It means that we have now come a little closer to understanding this case, so to speak. This wave equivalent of chromosomes just works for us. We introduce it to a person when he listens. Because genetic information is recorded in the form of a torsion field, it is transferred by an acoustic field, and a person listens and receives this torsion information and corrects his health. For example, he has a sick heart. He took this information from his child or grandson, from the umbilical cord blood, from the placenta, listens to this sound, and is cured. And we have a lot of such cases. There are already dozens, if not hundreds. I'm here now.
I don't know yet. When grandson, teeth grew, right, and my grandmother was treated for one thing. Her teeth grew as a result.
Yes, so this is exactly what we worked out only. This is one of our very first. That's right there in Nizhny Novgorod, where this group of doctors worked. And here's Anya, who was the leader in this group, a candidate for medical. She has a mom. Mom is 60 years old, no teeth. So these are the prostheses. And she also has diabetes. And she asks me, well, let's try to cure her of diabetes. Come on. And what to take as information? It means that she already has grandchildren, the children of this one, and no one. Well, there was a boy, a grandson, he just had a change of teeth, 9 years old. Here, and we just took blood from the finger, just in case. We think, what if it works? After all, there is also the same genetic information in the blood cells. It is the same in all cells. And they began to debit her. And her sugar is so high, he began to jump. Then it will fall very much, then it will jump, then. We practiced the mode, because it is important there, at what frequency I recorded, what time of exposure. It's a lot of stuff. Here, while we were practicing, it means that she irradiated her mom with this sound. She suddenly had both jaws blown apart, swelling. We were shocked because I thought, well, something bad was done. She runs to the radiologist, takes it off, and sees, she has 3 teeth grown. Very quickly and, you see, it's been growing for almost months, and she's been there for about a couple of weeks. In other words, biological time, it is like this with us, ours, it is regulated by our chromosomes. A special biological time. It can be accelerated and compressed, stretched or compressed. Here, and his teeth grew for these, and we calmed down. It was a precedent. They rested on the prostheses, went to the sides, and therefore caused injury. And she had such swelling, yes. Then it all passed quickly. What happened? It will push out and that's it. But we didn't go any further. Yes, then this group. As soon as this information was leaked, it became known, so the call, disperse. The group collects accelerates, he collects secretes, that's it. Do you understand? These are the adventures we have. Now, as for the structure of time, this is a special very good question. So we have a special biological time. It can be compared to a tree. A tree is a trunk and branches. Every branch is like a little tree, right? And on each twig, there is another twig, it is still different. Branching. Here is a purely mathematical branching fractal like this. This is one of the simplest fractals. But the simplest fractal is a simple line. If, of course, a thin simple line. So, whatever piece you take from this line of different ones, it will still be a line, only of different sizes. So this fractal here is an identity. The identity of these very structures. And here is a more complex fractal. Well, the second one, so to speak, in simplicity, is branching. Here we have vessels branching, yes, wrinkles branching, bronchi branching, nerve tissue, our neurons, these are also twigs. So, without everything, it's fractal through and through. And by the way, a hologram is also a special conversation. A hologram is also a fractal, only a special fractal. So, biological time, it's fractal. Why fractally? So, examples of the fractality of biological time. For example, there are bacteria, so on thermophiles. They live in black smokers, at depths in the ocean. There is a temperature of 300 or 400 degrees. Any biologist will tell you that everything there should fall apart at this temperature, cook, and there will be nothing left. They live quite peacefully. And not only bacteria, there are others that are resistant to high body temperatures, well, bacteria. So I ask the physicists, I say, look, the temperature is 300 or 400 degrees, they are alive. Why? They don't have refrigerators and individual ones. So they scratch their heads and say, we don't know. But I tell them, I'm a biologist in physics, but even I know that temperature is a function of time. That is, the number of movements is visible in time. If the temperature is high, the number of movements is more frequent, more often, and the more often the molecules move, the higher the temperatures. It depends. Here. So, what should be done to lower the temperature? Stretch the time, stretch the time. These organisms, these thermophiles, they have the ability to live in several temporal dimensions of the proctal. And they jump, so to speak, back and forth. In a stretched time, where it's cold, back to hot, where it's 300 degrees, right? And the average temperature is dropping. And they live quietly. This is an example of such fractality. This means that the time is stretched, and therefore, accordingly, the temperature is lowered for them. And then there are cases, for example, rapid aging of people. I don't remember the name of this disease now. Children at the age of 14 or 13 look as if they are 90 years old. This is a rapid aging of people. And there they found some kind of gene that seems to be responsible for this. This is a classic formula in genetics. The gene responsible for the color of the eyes, the shape of the nose there, is the shape of the wing and so on. Question: how does he respond? What is he doing? Is he shouting, come on, let's have this snub nose and nose? Do you understand? So what is it? That's funny. And it seems, by the way, that linguistic genetics is also based on this. It is quite possible, despite the fact that it seems ridiculous, that genes have speech-like properties. We studied this.
Starting with this question.
Yes. And by the way, this is also a fractal, only it is a speech fractal. Because you can display a very large number with a short phrase, or a short formula, right? It's the same thing, only a small dimension and a large dimension. E equals mc squared, Einstein's famous formula, right? It contains a lot of things. And you can write a book about it, yes, without this formula. Here is the table of contents in the book. This is just a fractal compression of the contents of the book. So, human genes are speech structures. Not all of them, probably, well, at least most of them are speech structures. We studied them specifically in mathematical linguistics, and showed that they have the property of fractality. Human genes and human speech. We compared human texts and genetic texts. Here is a human text. I took some book, and a genetic text, letters there, letters. And these letters, if we analyze the method of mathematical linguistics, it turns out that a fractal picture is obtained. I have it all here in my monograph, the second and third, it's all drawn. So, the human fate of a person, the fate of the genesis of the development of his stem cells into something, also depends on what these genes say, roughly speaking, but in their own language. Don't think so primitively, that there is human speech in Russian, English, and so on. But the grammar is the same as Chomsky. He is the greatest linguist of our time. He says that all languages have one grammar. Even Chinese ones. But this is a special area. I will write a big article about it here. In short, genes can give verbal commands. On the one hand, these same genes are involved in the creation of holograms. In order to build organs and tissue, it is necessary to create a spacetime image, a matrix, according to which a person is built, right? The body is built from an egg. So, there are two ways to do this: a hologram, which sets the spacetime structure of the organism, and a word. Speech. Do you understand? Speech, not knowing who. We don't know who wrote this speech.
And who reads it in the end. Here you say quasi-thinking.
Quasi-thinking, because it is not the same thinking as ours with you. Each cell has the ability to think at its own level. Even the ribosome that synthesizes proteins is a nanobiocomputer that has its own ability to write its own texts and give its own thoughts, you know. But this is not the speech we understand. These quantum or wave genes, they are speech constructs of the protein gene, I emphasize. These are quasi-speech structures. In other words, quasi is almost like speech, but not like ours. If you stupidly try to read the genes, then you will not understand anything. Because they have their own language. Since you, for example, do not know French, it is noise for you. Do you understand? The same thing is trying to hear here. And we hear the sound of DNA, but it speaks its own language. Are understandable to other cells. They have their own linguistics. And when we transmitted it to Toronto, and then the guys in Nizhny Novgorod repeated it, we read genetic information, including text, from the pancreas of newborn baby rats that were born by these Wistar rats, in which we killed the pancreas. And in control, they almost all died because they have type 1 diabetes. Sugar is not used. There is a lot of sugar, but it is not used. That means the rats are dying. And in the experiment, when we read information from the pancreas of newborn rats of the same line, we have this radio wave radiation, which contains a torsion component, informational, genetic. It spreads to the whole white world, to all four sides. But this does not mean that all the rats of the city of Toronto were cured of diabetes. I was with them. So, they act strictly on a certain genetic line. And here are those rats that were sick in the experiment, and they were already the day before, one more day and would have died. They are already feeling bad, they are lying down, dying. And therefore, at a distance of 1 meter, 3 meters and 20 kilometers, they all recovered. That is, the only way for them to recover is to regenerate a new pancreas. The pancreas was regenerated in these poor rats that were dying from diabetes. They didn't have a pancreas, it regenerated in them. Why? Because we have given these very wave genes, which are texts. And any text is a product of what? Thinking right. So, here are the mental functions for you, so are genes. And then you hid them. They hid it. Here, and then, it means that as soon as we got it, we have a quick hop. Guys, thanks, goodbye. They grabbed everything they could and dismantled the laser. He tells you, will invite you again. It's been over since then. How much? 11 years old. No, not even Poland. The 16th year. So, 15 years have gone by. We are all waiting to be invited. Come on. I'm smiling, of course. No one will invite us. They took the laser, the technology, all these reports from us, all these protocols, everything. In other words, we were simply robbed, elementary robbed, but we knew what we were going for. We knew it would end there. And that's it. It was important for us to prove that we could transmit genes at a distance, because everything was absolutely there in Canada, in Toronto. And we had nothing, we had zero. There was zero, because all the more so because we worked at the Institute of Management Problems, which is not intended for biological experiments at all. There is pure physics, mathematics, mathematical models and so on and so on. And then, Garyaev got involved, so to speak, and started genetics there. I have created my own Institute of Anthrogenetics, a private structure that cannot be closed so easily. We are engaged, because we have the right to be engaged. It is impossible to find fault. If I'm at the Academy of Sciences, you can always find fault. And to call it pseudoscience, and so on and so on. They blacken me in every possible way, as it is done on the internet, in every possible way, but I do only my own thing, and prove, earning my own money on the fact that I treat sick people, terminally ill people.
Pancreatic regeneration, was it possible to do something like that after that?
Of course. Here's a look at what happened next. So, the regeneration of the pancreas is a precedent. No one has ever done this. The most complex gland, which is responsible not only for, so to speak, the exchange of sugar, There are other hormones there. Here, so were hers.
So everything can be regenerated in the light.
That's it.
With everything.
Yes, there is no prohibition. Is it only possible to do the regeneration of the pancreas in a quantum way, transferring the quantum equivalence of genes? No, you can, it turns out. And since then, we have been working, and have already come up with a technology that allows programming human stem cells. That's where billions of dollars are being poured into the sand now. Money laundering is going on. Because attempts to program stem cells, it is impossible to use old knowledge on genetics. The old genetics has done its good work, and this is a stepping stone. And then, it means that if you stay on this step, you will be marking time, as they are marking time now. Moreover, it even brings harm. I'll talk about it separately later. So, why the harm from the fact that, therefore, the development of genetics has stopped? And here we have set ourselves the task, well, let's try to regenerate what? Spinal cord. It's a big swing, you know. It's cooler than the pancreas. It's more nocturnal, of course, because it's the nervous system that controls all of this. And the brain is the same. We have been working in this direction, but right now I'm just talking about the spinal cord. This is aerobatics of complexity already, here. And it means that the guy from Johannesburg is Matt Cohen, and his mom is a businessman. She found out about our research, wrote me a letter. Can you, they say, help? I say, well, let's try. But I say, it's difficult, because it requires a lot of organizational, financial and so on efforts. It's okay, I'll reimburse everything, since she's a smaller business, and her son is dying. He's been lying motionless for 15 years, because he drove a cart at the age of about 20 or 19, and got into an accident, and his spinal cord is simply fractured. Absolutely immobility. It's been lying there for 15 years, it's all dried up. I say, well, let's try. But for this, it is necessary to program its table cells. Bring him here, because we can't fly to you, and so on, because we need to start here. He brings him here, so he's absolutely motionless, a handsome guy so young. Here, so what are we doing? We take stem cells from his adipose tissue. We program them. We program by reading information from normal neurons, live ones, from normal donor neurons. We serve it, we introduce it to him. Well, there's a long time all this tells that it was the first stage, he was taken away. So, the effect was weak, but there was something. We say, please, we can go on. We need some introductions. Not one, but many times to take stem cells, grow them, program them, inject them into the bloodstream, and grow them again, inject them again, and so on. We've been messing with her for 2 years. So, the first case was in Moscow, then he was taken to Jagenberg. And that means our employees flew there. Including my wife flew there. She is also a biologist, she is a candidate, biophysicist, candidate of sciences. So, it turned out to be a miracle. So, for 2 years we conducted it, trained them, gave them all the know-how. Please, just do it, we are not sorry. Here. And so, we taught them how to program cells, a laser, showed them how to work with a laser, but he doesn't need a laser, because we gave the matrices ready-made records of information taken from normal neons. This recording is the one that is obtained from the laser. That's it, you put it in your pocket, and you have an eternal one. And so they began to irradiate. There, in addition to the laser, a focusing device was also needed, such a pipe, a variant of the Gariaev mirror is so called. That's what we gave them all, and they began to further process this very poor Matt Cohen. And 2 years later, he got back on his feet, although he came with a little chopsticks, because the muscles had degraded in 15 years. There were no muscles. But go. He trained his legs, he trained his arms. I have a recording. So, as he pulls up, the muscles are already here, pulling up on the horizontal bar, and even his sister is holding on, pulling up, and you can see how he already walks around with chopsticks.
And now how is he, you know, connected with them?
He has his own business. He drives a car, despite the fact that he walks badly, they are still injected with stem cells. That's a long process. But the fact is that we got another precedent. A precedent, which means that it's not only the pancreas, but it's also possible. So it means that the neurons of the spinal cord are broken, torn. Regenerate the spinal cord. And now Spiridonov, a poor guy, is about to have his head cut off by an Italian professor. So he has a special disease, this Spiridonov. He's shriveling up all over, and he only has one head working, and that's it. So the arms, legs are getting worse, 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 worse. He's a programmer himself, a smart guy, that's it, a good girl. And he agreed, he says, let's go to my place. Transplant my healthy head into the body of a healthy person. Remember how the professor's head is up to or more complicated, really. So this one forgot his last name, the Italian surgeon, who kind of worked out this case on animals there, says, let me transplant him. But there are risks. There is no guarantee that he is, so to speak, everything. I tried to call this doctor, this Italian surgeon. I wanted to say, guys, you will cut off his head, but you will not do anything, because no one except us, neurons, a brain damaged, so to speak, by the back, did not do it before us, we were the first to do it. I wanted to give him a video link. I can't get through. Cut off and that's it. You won't get through. Well, it's a pity for Spiridonov. So, why? We could have helped. Here, now it's not yet cut off the head. Well, that's it. It will be soon. I can't find it. Will you find it? I'll get out. I'll go for it.
Is he in Moscow?
I don't know where they took me, either in St. Petersburg or in Moscow. Last name, Spiridonov. You will find it on the internet. So, a head transplant of Spiridons. Here's an Italian professor, I forgot his last name. But if we get to them before the guy is killed, then we could help. Here. So what else? This means that when we read information from living organs and tissues, or native, at least taken, for example, abortive material. And now, such a semi-fantastic at first glance, branch of our research, when we take information with a photo. You see, they work a lot with photography. It has long been proven that information is removed from them. But these are all psychics, and they all say that there is a grandmother there is some kind of something there. Some grandfather there looked at the photo, passed it there. Or water, for example. Yes, water. The African Vodou tribe, for example, they deal with people who are objectionable, or have sinned there, they sculpt a figure, pierce the heart or head. A man is dying. This is also a transfer from the image, from the phantom of a person, so there. We are also working, because here, the transfer of DNA is the transfer of DNA phantoms. It's the quantum equivalent, it's a DNA phantom. This is a special conversation. I can tell you further what it is. From the point of view of physics and, so to speak, genetics and biology, this is nonsense. You take a piece of paper, some information from there. Yes, there is an image of a man. Well, it's the illuminated silver grains there, or there's another paint that shows the image, and that's it. This is from the official point of view, medicine, genetics, and so on and so on. But we didn't hesitate, because we knew that photography was already working. According to the phantoms of the photo, people are treated there, everything. But it's all done like this, at the expense of their own intelligence, with special abilities. And here, I want a device so that everyone can do it. Here's the laser, please. We try. And now someone is leading. It turns out that the most powerful first result was this. So we had a woman, she has a blind right eye. The right eye is blind. And she writes to me, what should I do? I want my eye to be healthy. Come on, I say, send a photo.
Has he been blind all her life?
Always. There is no retina. He looks normal, but the retina of the eye, that is, the main thing, so to speak, that works in the eye, the retina. Well, yes, send photos of the nursery. And she got into the green corridor, you know. She got into the green corridor, because there are a lot of photos, requirements, I said. They did. Just like we read information from the pancreas, from the blood and so on, we took a laser in the same way, so to speak, and right from the point. They tell me, the cauda is at a point, there is only a point, the laser beam is there 1 millimeter during the day. What is there? What kind of information is there? So what do we see? Here are the photos we see. We see with photons that are reflected, right? Palettes. Photons that penetrate our eyes. Our laser beam interferes. I am my hypothesis. I do not pretend that, but it's hard to explain it any other way. They interfere with these photons that come from the photos. You can put it on, we don't have time. So, it is possible to put control, but this is a long conversation, and it turns out a hologram. Once they interfere, any interference gives you a hologram. And what? So this woman is Pribitkovo. She listens to her baby photo, a program taken from her baby photo, and her vision returns. And the spectrum is being made here. By the way, it's good that there is objective confirmation. She managed to get it from the doctors somehow. I do not know how she achieved it. That's before the right eye, it has one spectrum. It can be seen that the dark field, all blind eye, blind. And after we worked with her, we gave her a program, and she listened there for a month or two. And she has this black field, it's up, and 70% normal. And she sees with her right eye. Here's the second case for you.
And you just examined that there was no retina, here it is straight.
Yes, regeneration, just like the pancreas regenerates. Yes. Is the spinal cord damaged? Yes. Does the retina regenerate? But at the expense of the photo. Do you understand? And therefore, she is happy, she keeps writing to me that everything, I see everything. Here is one of the cases paradoxically proves our case. There was a negative case, then we turned it into a positive one. It means that I have spoken about it, talked about it, maybe you have heard, it may not make sense to repeat myself. The guy is a translator, successful, 35 years old, a handsome guy, writes to me, says, I want to stay young for a long time. I say, all right, send a photo, your baby photo. He sends, hurried, sent the wrong photo. I then, since he is warned that you must observe this, that, and the child must first of all be healthy. He ignored it altogether, thought it was nothing to worry about. So I made a program for him, sent it to him. He began to listen to her. A week later, he calls me in a panic. I was covered with sores. And I say, what was on? I immediately realized that something was wrong. Are you healthy in the photo? He says, I was vaccinated. And he says, I was itching in the midst of it then. I remember, it was now. How old was he? 6 or 5 years old. I don't remember now. Here. And so I say, well, it's your own fault. Here he says, my wife has left. I'm covered in ulcers. I say, okay, don't worry. First, take a picture of yourself. He took a picture of his ulcers, sent it to me. I don't have it lying around somewhere. But you still can't prove it to anyone. Here. I say, send a quick photo where you are healthy. After that, when your immunity has already worked, that's it, you have become immune, everything is protected. Sends another photo of the same age. I'm doing it to him. After 10 days, he is absolutely healthy. Everything is gone, all the ulcers are gone. Here's an example. And this serves as. You see, it's always one step from the great to the ridiculous. So my enemies are writing, look, Garyaev is completely crazy. He pulled the smallpox virus out of the photo paper. Can it be like this? Well, no, of course, on the layman. The layman, of course, will say, well, why are you pulling the smallpox virus out of the photo paper? So crazy. To his yellow house, the yellow house. Planted. Here, everything, and the guy is healthy. Everything is fine. This paradoxically proves our case. And there was more than one such case. Because people forget that I remember when it was 60 years ago. I give my picture when I was there as a 4-year-old, let's say, right? I don't remember anything. I say, well, this is your problem, I warned you. And it means that my grandmother gave me her photos alone. She forgot that the tonsils were also removed. And she took her picture just at that time. They tore the tonsils, so to speak, roughly so everything. And she came out all over with snot and blood. And he calls me, says, well, I'm to blame. I now realized that. I say, calm down. First of all, it is temporary, everything will pass, because it is a short-term return, so to speak, to that state, because it's a time machine. You know, what we found is actually a time machine. That is, it is possible to drive a person back by age, as it were.
Tell me also how, let's say, regeneration, that a person has not yet been rejuvenated externally, but, that is, it's the same in general.
Here are the difficulties. So, the spect that we get, yes, this is the original spect, which is a torsion field, it is not linear fractal. Well, briefly, what is if? Here's the offshoot. So, an ideal mathematical fractal is such a fluffy tree, here are the twigs, there the angles between the twigs are the same. The length of the twigs proportionally increase or decrease and so on. Everything is linear there. This means that in our case, it is not linear. Therefore, it means that there are such effects associated with this that the spectrum is nonlinear fractal, which we use. And they write to me, so they ask me to help. There are 2 women who are over 80, but they are still cheerful, well, they want to rejuvenate. And one who's over 60 there. They have been in menopause for a long time. Here I had 3 cases, and the one who is over 60, or close to 60, she even worked for me at one time, she is a medic herself. And she had what then? She was paralyzed in the blood vision of the brain, and half of the body was, so to speak, paralyzed. And so I gave her the program, my son sent her a baby photo, that's it. And she was working in Ireland then. And so, I made her a program, and literally in a few. And therefore, the son transmits through a cellular receiver, so as not to frighten anyone there, recorded it on a cellular receiver. And she therefore, listened to this sound. For 5 days she listened, and she stood up. Everyone is in shock, because she is paralyzed, she was left to die. She got up and that was it. And so, she's like a copper, says, give me, in short, a snapshot of the brain, before and after. She was told, you know what, and she is a refugee, their attitude is bad. So, what do you mean she's up? So she refuted their diagnosis. And then, she was lying paralyzed, everything is clear. And suddenly he gets up. It's a miracle, isn't it? And do you know what they are, Grandma? And children, and children, and children. We won't give you anything, it's all over. Now I come back to these 2 old ladies who are over 80. They decided to rejuvenate. But first of all, of course, the face. They need a young face. And I took only the spectrum taken at 1 frequency. Well, I took about 700 kilohertz there, as far as I remember.
Is it possible to increase the purity?
And you can shoot with it on any frequency. But, I took the one that is the least noisy, because the noise of the city of Moscow is located somewhere in the same frequencies. Therefore, somewhere around 700 kilohertz, there is minimal noise. And we use this range. Although we can use any other range. There's this range, from 315 nanometers, from blue light to infinitely long hair. This is according to theory. This is because when photons turn into a broadband field, this is how the theory of localized photons, localized light, works. One of our co-authors, Maximenko Vladimir Viktorovich, a theoretical physicist, he just justified. Because when we return the beam back, we get a powerful cry of the radio receiver, which you will never get with a conventional laser. But this happens when you have exactly returned the beam back to the laser resonator. If you take a little corner or 2, that's it, the noise subsides. So, this broadband field arises, which is caught by the radio receiver only when you have returned the beam back. That is, you have a hologram on the opposite beams. It takes a long time to tell. We have a hologram of a traveling intensity wave, published in the United States, and so on and so on. This is for a special seminar. Here, and that means there are 2 old ladies, gigglers. Here, so they listened. They persevered. I say, you know what, the effect is unknown when it will be, and whether it will be at all. I say, I guarantee nothing, but you serve longer. They took small player handles, hung them on their chest, they listened around the clock, and there the volume of the sound does not play. But the sound is so nasty, the noise is so. And I say, the sound is minimal, just so that the ear hears and that's it. Information content is the most important thing. The amplitude, the signal does not matter. And these old ladies, it means, have been listening hard for a year. I spoke, maybe you've heard it already. And so, in short, the menstrual cycle has returned to these old ladies who have not forgotten. 40 years ago, they had it all gone. And they got mad at me because the faces are old.
And why should we?
Why do I need Morocco with this cycle? Why do we need this? We need smooth faces to be. Well, I'm them.
And if we change this spectrum here?
I say, girls, so in order for you to be very young, I have to test not one spectrum, but hundreds of spectra on you. It is necessary to choose certain frequencies, because the aspect is not linear fractal, and each branch has its own purpose, do you understand? We are working at the level of precedence, because we do not have a clinic, there is nothing. Doctors shy away from us, we are their competitors. Well, why should dentists have such a competitor, who, so to speak, grow
teeth.
Or bald. They become not bald there. Or whatever. Well, all medicine, it should be different. And why would they? They don't need it. Here, we sat down, sniffed everything. By the way, yesterday I got a call from a woman who took a matrix just in case there with her baby photo. Yes, but she didn't believe it. She took it just in case. And therefore, she is some major experience, and she has a cut. And the right side of the face, you know, sagged. And a young woman still. Terrible. A tragedy.
Of course.
And then she grabbed onto this very program, which he wrote to her there about 3 years ago, based on his childhood photo. And she began to listen to him stubbornly. In 2 weeks, everything came back to him. This, apparently, was a microstroke with damage to part of the brain, and means that the face has sunk, the right half of the face. Here. And she recovered completely. Delighted, he calls me, says, I should have left you for nothing. Now I'm going to listen all the time.
And if there were any diseases in the embryo in the photo? The child had some diseases in the bud, for example, already.
And that's bad.
He's later.
Like this. By no means. So I'm saying that you guys are taking a risk because this is dangerous, because there is little or nothing. A person is sick, yes, a child is sick, but you forgot. That's the same as in the case of this, with smallpox was. Here is a bad case. Well, okay, it ended well. So we have primary experiments on volunteers. One in general, 2 ladies wrote to me that they agree, they want to try, because I hinted there, once I spoke, and say that I can in principle carry out the mental hybridization of people based on photography. And so, the guy says this to me, come on, I agree, and the smartest guy by himself. And what happened next? Stunningly perfect. This guy. So I say, well, who would you like to hybridize with? I say, well, keep in mind that you are taking a risk, because if a person, you give a person as a donor, and he was sick with something, and now he's dead, right, then you can take it all on yourself. Nothing, come on. They send me 2 people. Who were you thinking of? Tesla, and Jackie Chan. Superman. And the guy then has a vertebral column in order. He walked there with a wand. He had something with the vertebral column, some kind of damage in nature or something, I don't know, the displacement of the atlas there. Here. And what? I say, well, look, come on, here are 3 spectra yours, the present one, Jackie Chan, and this Tesla. I mixed them, these spectra sent the total spectrum to him. It takes about a month or a half. Now I know for sure. We are all still working with him now. He is actively involved in our affairs. He bombarded me with ideas. He was already thinking well, but here he has a new idea every day. Every day he writes to me, this can be done, this. I say, well, who will do something? We have no money, nothing. Thank you for the ideas.
And he's like a cornucopia.
The subtlety of reading information with a photo, so to speak, with my photo. My children's photo also uses where I am 4 years old. He took special, so to speak, parts of the spectrum there, gave me. Yes, here, well, try it, yes. Here, this is one guy, so he has. Let me throw a stick. He walks without a stick now. And a young guy, of course, is not good with a wand. And the other one I have, with a very characteristic surname coin, a coin with Ukraine. The man is 54 years old. Complains too. Here, I am so unhappy, I cursed my mother, and this whole life goes awry, there is nothing, no money, no job. I'm ready to get into the loop at all. Do something. Here, I say, all right, come on. Well, you're taking a risk too. Look, I say, let's try it. So, I did the same to him. Since the Tesla was worked out, I handed him the Tesla Spectrum, and something else from a hefty man. And therefore, gave it to him. And you know, when it's good, it's not noticed. He didn't even notice that he was doing well. Then I write to him in a month, 2 or 3, I say, what do you have? Yes, everything is fine. I made chlorella production there, so it's possible there, already this. He has ideas too. You can sell it all, he has a lot of ideas. He forgot he was there with a stick. This too also walked with a stick. He threw a stick with his foot. Yes, he says, everything is fine. Here's a good one not noticed. That guy is an analyst, he clearly told me what happened to him. And I forgot all that. A coin. He is happy, everything is fine with him. I forgot that he was cursed, that his whole life was messed up. So you can teach people, like children for example. Our children study boredom, 10 years in school, 5 years driving, 3 years in graduate school, 18 years. And we can quickly enter information. Because our brains are capable, only we need to be able to enter this information there. We have such a stub, yes, and here we are stupid like this. So you can teach kids very quickly. And this will be a leap forward for humanity, because 10 years. If you take it, it's just a file, right? Yes, you just took a training file, and are teaching it. But if he took from Tesla, yes, some kind of ability to generate ideas. Here, please, is an example. Plus, I took Jackie Chan's health. My employee, right, he says, and I'll try it on myself too, let me. I have a 20-year-old photo, there is no child, and he is 53. Says, well, I'll submit to myself to see what happens. Well, let's check it out. Well, let's check it out. And so come on. He turned on the laser, directly with the photo, directly feeds the torsion field to himself. What happened? So he was there for a few days, for a week or 2, listening to himself. And then, I also have a panic call. As always, it happens unexpectedly, right? He says I have something with my back, some kind of wild pain. I say, come. I suspected that something was wrong. And he didn't even realize that, he didn't even look there. Can't you see through the mirror? I say, show me what you have there. It lifts up his shirt, and on his back, as if he was beaten with boots, purple-blue hemorrhage, bruises, hematomas, and so on. And what was it, I say, with you? Did you injure your back once? Yes, he says, I had an accident, just a little while ago, I received a photo. He says he crashed in the car, he says, okay, the spine is intact, the back as it was injured. So, I say, here she has come to you. The time machine has worked, but it's not scary, because literally every other day, everything gradually resolved for him. In other words, the refund is in an easy form. This is the 98th year, it was a long time ago, and we are in the midst of these, so to speak, our affairs. Everything is interesting, my eyes are burning, and he's got a man on fire too. Physics, a good, cool physicist. Here, and the holographist. And he then brought his sperm. He took it, smeared it on a glass plate, it dried and cracked. Once cracked, it broke. So, these spermatozoa, they broke, and some have torn where the head is, where the main material is genetic. And so, we stuck it. I'm curious too. I somehow didn't notice that it was absolutely cracked. So we turn it on in 5 minutes. Yes, we see a picture, a sound, a special sound like that. The picture of the speckle is unique, these specklinocchi do not rotate at all, which is unusual for physics in general. But, we are connected, apparently, with polarization. Rotates, oh, what a spectrum, holy shit. We need to take a picture, we need this, we need everything. Both of them have time somewhere there the 11th hour of the night, we injected there. And suddenly he's like that. I feel bad. And falls. Falling.
You were so scared.
Well, yes, the man is already under 70, I think, God forbid to say anything like that. I then hit me, and think, what are we going to do? We take his own genetic material and apply it to him, as if with the requirement to turn into a baby or something to receive. And torn chromosomes. This, here, then I've already come to this too. I quickly turned off the equipment, that's it. And he's lying down.
He is conscious, as it were, simply.
Lying, resting, as they say, yes. There, somehow, something began to say something like that. But quickly, so we're ready. Well, you can go. I think we somehow got home. 10 days, the temperature is 42 degrees. One more degree, everything was lost. And the most important thing is that he inherited his son, and even his wife. It would seem that it is genetic. Well, people still unite, husband and wife. One Satan, and they say right. And she too, she has a temperature, her son has a temperature. He died for 10 days, so he drank only water and prayed. And gradually came out of this state. I say, Joro, it was a warning. You can't mess with human genetic material, especially not as rudely as we did. I smeared it, everything cracked, and since then, we have stopped working in this direction. We switched to rats, and where next is the experiment, a successful primary experiment was in Moscow in the 2000th year. When we regenerated the pancreas in a small amount, there were 36 rats. And they showed that they survive. How would you determine the purity of the pancreas? And so, these guys from Nizhny Novgorod, here's Anya, they all know excellent histology. They just took slices. Before that. Normal gland. I have everything in this book, look carefully. It means that the gland is normal before. It means that from the islets of the land, it seems that everything is fine about this cell. Then, after they were given laxin, they all shriveled up and died in this cage. The next picture is histological. And after exposure, when regeneration has occurred, exactly the same normal islands of Langogarza and beta cells are perfectly visible on histology. There are pictures there, you can look right now. In other words, the prospects are enormous. Then, we now have a pathetic own funding, which I get when I kill people. They pay this money, almost.
The matrix.
Almost, so to speak, 100% go to science here. That in fact is all. This is the situation around us, although I have already published a lot of works, including abroad. He has written and published 3 monographs. This is the 3rd monograph of 2009 year, and interestingly, in Kiev. But there was some person who saw the manuscript of this book, and a check for how much is there. Yes, he gave $20,000, a large print run, and look how well it is published, everything is on luxurious paper. This help came straight from there.